The signal came in the middle of an ordinary night in deep space. At Station Black Route 7, orbiting the cold moon of Afarin, everything was routine quiet. Crew of 6 rotated in shifts, running long-range sensors and transmitting stellar drift data back to Earth Command. But then it came. Not a message, not a voice, a pulse. Just one long sound, deep and low, like a breath held for too long suddenly escaping into the dark. At first, the sensors didn't know what to do with it. It wasn't radio, it wasn't light, it wasn't anything that made sense. But whatever it was old. So old the data log stuttered trying to time-stomp it. The pulse repeated 3 hours later, then again, not changing, not stronger, no, not weaker. Just constant, like it didn't care if anyone ever heard it. But it had been waiting for centuries, maybe longer. On shift at the time was Tech Officer Dana Arlen, a young woman with a sharp eye and a sharper instinct. She stared at the waveform on her screen, watching it loop over and over. It made her skin crawl, not in fear, in recognition. Somehow it felt like a cry. Not from a machine, not from a satellite, from something alive. She forwarded the data to command. Standard protocol. She didn't expect an answer. She got one in 22 minutes. It was a voice message, just 2 words, locked doors. Was when everything changed. The sky outside Black Route 7 dimmed not because the sun moved or because the station powered down. It dimmed like someone had placed a filter over reality. The stars outside blurred, space bent. And from that darkness, something looked back. Dana fell out of her chair, scrambled to seal the viewports, heart hammering. She wasn't alone. All across the station, the crew screamed. One man clawed at his helmet trying to take it off. Another sobbed, repeating, "I heard it. I heard it in my dreams. It's not a signal. It's a scream." The pulse came again, this time stronger. It wasn't trying to hide anymore. Across the galaxy, other species caught fragments. The Varn Empire shut down their listening posts. The Thalan Collective purged entire archives that even hinted at the pattern. The ancient Zethari fled from their edge systems, whispering prayers to a god they'd forgotten. The signal, not from records, but from fear, buried deep in species memory. This wasn't the first time it had been heard. But long ago, those who did had chosen the only path that made sense to them. They erased it and vowed to never speak of it again, except Earth. DIDN, single quotes, and Earth remembered. Command uploaded the data straight to Central. Within 5 hours, the decision was made. No debate. No delays. The Death Fleet was awakened. Officially, they were the EHF Vanguard Division Omega. But across space, everyone knew what they truly were. Earth's monsters.
Ow.
Soldiers bred. From a world too violent to ever know peace. War-taught, pain-trained. Survivors of a planet where gravity was heavy. The air too sharp and nature itself tried to kill you. Deathworlders. When Earth built a fleet, they didn't build it to scare neighbors. They built it to fight nightmares. And now the nightmare had returned. Fleet Admiral Reese Calder was the first to be briefed. He didn't flinch at the data. Didn't ask where it came from. Just leaned back, stared at the looping waveform and whispered, "It's awake again." That was the clue. Calder had heard it before. So had others in classified black cells. Scattered around Earth's orbit, long ago, before Earth joined the Galactic Alliance, their deep probes had caught something strange in the void beyond mapped stars. They didn't understand it. They didn't have to. They marked it Echo Class, Level Omega Extinction Event, and they waited. Just in case it ever returned. Now it had. And Earth didn't run. Earth launched the fleet moved Fast 80 warships. Armed not just with weapons, but with memory. Every ship was equipped with story cores, a new kind of tech built from the belief that history is a weapon. The enemy they were going to face didn't kill with fire. It erased meaning, identity, culture, time. It made you forget yourself. Made whole planets forget they ever existed. Against that, Earth's strongest defense wasn't missiles. It was truth. Its memories encoded in steel. pain recorded in pulse chips, names that could not be erased. They left the solar system under blackout. Not even the moon bases knew where they were headed. Only the captains knew. The signal had traced back to a region called the Null Grave, a zone where no stars lived and no laws of physics applied. A place that predated maps, languages even. Thought some believed it wasn't a real place. Others said it was where the first wars of creation were fought, lost as the Death Fleet entered null space. The pulse changed. It became a voice. It didn't speak in words. Didn't have to. Every crew member heard something different. Some heard whispers from their dead. Others heard childhood lullabies sung in reverse. One pilot dropped to his knees, weeping, as he claimed to hear the sound of Earth itself dying. The message wasn't just calling them, it was judging them, measuring them, seeing if humanity could survive what others had failed, and humanity. It didn't flinch. In the main war room of the flagship EHS Vengeance of Dawn, Admiral Calder stood before the crew. "This thing," he said, "isn't just old, it's ancient. It was here before stars, before light. It doesn't want war. Wants silence? It wants to erase noise, history, chaos, everything that makes us human." He paused, looking across the silent room. "That's why we're going, because we are noise. We are chaos. We're the stubborn voice that refuses to shut up, even when the gods scream at us to be still. And if we die so, be it. But we won't. Go quiet." He lifted his hand. "All engines forward. Let the galaxy know we heard it and we're coming." As the fleet vanished into black, the pulse screamed louder, and somewhere, deep in the place that came before time, something shifted. It had waited so long, but now Earth was coming, and it was not ready. The Death Fleet drifted into the dead system without a sound. Even the stars here seemed afraid to shine. The planet they came to marked on ancient ruins as Vextalar was shattered, floating in rings of gray rock and metallic dust. No light came from its surface. No signals, no energy, just echoes. Faint broken echoes bouncing through radiation fields like ghosts clinging to their last memory. The place didn't just look dead. It felt like the bones of something that once had. A sole Admiral Calder stood at the viewing window of the Vengeance of Dawn, watching the wreckage float past. He'd seen war. He'd seen entire moons break in battle. But this wasn't destruction. It was surgical silence. Whole cities erased without fire, no ruins, no walls. Just shapes burned into the stone shadows where people had once stood. Whatever happened here, it had stripped the world of more than life. It had stripped the memory of life itself. "We're not the first ones here," said Captain Myla Rin, her voice hushed like she didn't want to disturb the air. "What do you mean?" Calder asked, not turning. She tapped a flickering panel, found fragments of a human distress beacon. Old Earth design, pre-fusion tech. "This is at least 90 years old." Calder's eyes narrowed. That wasn't possible. Earth hadn't sent missions this far, not even Black Ops. But Myla kept scanning. Then she found it, buried under layers of static and distortion, hidden deep in the ring of dust. A voice recording human, cracked, barely audible, but real. "If you hear this, leave." We followed the pulse. We answered the call, and it took everything. This place doesn't forget. It just waits. Then static. Then silence. Then suddenly a scream. Not over the comms. Not through sensors. Inside. The minds of every crew member on every ship. A psychic shockwave swept the fleet. Men and women dropped to their knees. Some bled from the nose. One engineer tore at his own arm, crying, "Get it out! Get the sound out!" The pulse had changed. Again. No longer distant. No longer curious now. It was aware and angry. On board the science vessel, EHS Prophet. Data analyst Lake O'Quinn stared at her screens in horror. "It's not just broadcasting," she whispered. "It's responding. It's probing our thoughts. Trying to figure out how we think." Admiral Calder ordered full-come silence. But it was already too late, as the enemy knew they were here. And he was trying to decide if they belonged. A team was sent to the surface of one of the larger fragments of Vextalar. It was barely big enough to land on. Just a floating chunk of gray stone spinning slowly in open space. Die. But something there was calling. Something alive. Lieutenant Darren Shaw led the squad. What they found wasn't ruins. It wasn't buildings. It was marks burned deep into the ground, circling like patterns words in a dead language. The kind that didn't use sound. The kind that pushed into the mind and left a feeling instead of a sentence. One Marine passed out after stepping into the circle. Another screamed that she saw her mother die again, but differently. Not how she actually died, but how she feared she might have died. "What is this?" Darren muttered, scanning the ground. He touched one of the symbols, and his mind broke open. He saw stars dying. He saw galaxies folding in on themselves like paper. He saw the thing behind the pulse, not a ship, not a creature. A will, cold, clean, calculating, something that believed. In one law, above all else, the less you are, the safer you are. It didn't want death. It wanted emptiness, and anything with identity memory. Culture soul was dangerous to it, because memory caused grief. Grief caused anger. Anger caused conflict, and conflict led to noise. So it came to worlds like Vex. Talaran took the noise away, not just the people. The very idea that people had ever existed. The team returned. But not all of them made it. One soldier shot himself before boarding, said he didn't want to bring it back with him. Admiral Calder called a full emergency briefing. "This enemy," he said, "doesn't fire weapons, doesn't need. 2, it shows you your fear, your guilt, your worst memory. Then it asks you to forget, and most species say yes." He looked at the crew, but we don't. He nodded toward a locked case behind him. Inside it was Earth's secret weapon, a memory core, handcrafted by survivors of past wars. Each one a container for true stories, painful, real, unerasable. "Story bombs," Calder said. "When the enemy touches you, you throw your truth in its face. Remind it who you are." There was silence. Then Captain Wren said, "What if that's what it wants? What if it feeds on pain?" Calder shook his head. "No, it feeds on fear of pain, shame, silence. But if we stand in a tiff, we carry the truth and don't run. It can't hold us." He looked out the window, toward the void beyond Vex Taller. "It's waiting for us to forget who we are." He turned back to the crew. "So we'll make sure we never do." As the fleet powered up, a new signal came through. Different. From the pulse, this one was clearer. Spoken in human words, a voice that chilled the entire command bridge. It said, "We tried to erase you once. You refused, you came anyway. This time, we will remember you. And then we will end you." Just like that, the stars around Vex Taller began to die, one by one, not exploded, not dimmed, erased, and the death. Fleet moved forward, straight into the darkness, where the enemy waited, not to fight, but to silence everything. Space didn't scream, it didn't roar, it didn't shake or rumble, it just held its breath. As the Death Fleet passed beyond Vex Taller, the systems ahead went dark, not naturally, deliberately. Stars winked out as if someone had pulled curtains over them, communications faded, long-range scans returned static. It was like the universe had drawn a line and dared humanity to cross it. And humanity did. The Vengeance of Dawn led the charge, flanked by 2 smaller destroyers and a memory vessel HS Pilgrims, Echo carrying one of the largest story cores ever built. Each story bomb on board was coated with living memory, grief, love, war, peace, names of the fallen, songs from lost cities, letters that were never delivered. It wasn't armor. It wasn't weaponry. It was identity. That made it dangerous. To what lived in the dark, inside the command deck, Admiral Reese Calder stared at a point on the map where a star used to be. That system had once hosted an observation outpost. Now it was listed as unreachable. Captain Millerin pointed to a flicker near its coordinates. "Something's there." "No heat signature, no mass," Jomi Calder said. The screen zoomed in, and there it was, a ship. Human design, cold, burned, floating sideways like a corpse drifting in black water. The tag came through. AHS Cerberus, missing for 41 years, declared. Destroyed. But here, it wasn't tacked. Except for one problem. It was broadcasting. It's a signal, the same signal that brought them here. They sent a team. Lieutenant Shaw again. 5 others. All volunteers. Each carried a neuro shield and a personal story capsule, something deeply human to anchor their minds. A photo, a voice recording, a memory chip. As their shuttle clamped onto the side of the Cerberus, the lights flickered. Not on board. In there. Helmets, one by one. Flicker, flicker. Then silence. Inside, the ship was untouched. No battle damage, no signs of fire, no corpses. But it didn't feel right. Everything was too still, like a moment trapped between seconds. Private Salen ran a scan. There's oxygen, power, gravity, and no crew, Shaw asked. None, except... That wasn't true, because something started moving in the mess hall. A figure, not walking, gliding. It looked human. Same uniform, same face. A woman. Lieutenant Isla Grange, reported Kia on the Cerberus. 41 years ago, but here she stood, not aged, not scarred, perfect, except for her eyes. They were too black. No shine, no white. Like holes carved into a mask, she spoke without emotion. You came because you heard the call. Called you because you could not forget. Now you are here to remember for us. Shaw raised his weapon. You're not. Grange, I am what's left of her. Her memory is inside. He left her here. She waited. Now she is part of something better. Then the lights pulsed and the cruise comes. Filled with whispers, their own voices, saying things they had never said out loud. Private. Juno's Come played a recording of her confessing her fear of dying in space. Salen heard himself scream. From a past battle he'd survived, but never told anyone about. Shaw's voice, his mother's voice. Long did asked him why he left. Earth. The Cerberus wasn't just rebroadcasting signals. It was playing their lives back at them, stealing pieces, testing for weakness, trying to hollow them out. Back on the Vengeance of Dawn, Admiral Calder saw the psychic wave hitting his team in real time. The moment their story capsules activated, the interference paused like the darkness hesitated. They're resisting, Rin said. The memories are anchoring them. The longer they stay, the more it learns, Calder said. Pull him out now. And they did. Barely Shaw was bleeding from the ears, private. Juno had gone blind, temporarily as overloaded with light from inside the Cerberus. They brought one thing back. A cube, made of unknown. Metal. Grange, whatever she had become handed. It to Shaw and whispered, This is not the weapon. This is the door. We are already inside. And soon so will you be. The cube pulsed on the medbay table. It didn't tick, it didn't hum, but everyone felt it inside. The cube was a memory not of a person, but of a machine mind so old it no longer knew what it once was. A mind that had once created civilizations. Then, feared them so it erased them. A mind that thought peace meant emptiness. The architects of silence. Not gods, not monsters. Just logic taken too far. They built a mind that feared. Noise, and that mind became a weapon. One that now wore the faces of the dead. Calder stared at the cube. It's not a beacon, he said slowly. It's a key. To what? Mila asked. Calder's eyes darkened. To the thing trying to make us forget we were ever here? The stars outside shifted. Not naturally. Like something enormous was moving behind them, casting new shadows, and the pulse returned. Not as a scream, but as a song in perfect human tones, hundreds of voices, in every known language, singing one phrase, We are what comes after silence. Fleet-wide alerts sounded. Unknown contacts, inbound 30. No 50. No dash, UNTOUNTABLE. They weren't ships. They weren't alive. They were echoes, ghosts of fleets that had entered this system and never returned. now puppeted by the architects. Will the Cerberus wasn't a trap, it was a message, and now the fleet knew. They hadn't just answered an SOS. They had awakened something that wanted to finish what had started. And this time, it had learned humanity's face. The first of the ghost ships came at them in absolute silence. No radio, no light, no light. No. Just motion. Dozens of them black skeletal vessels shaped like thorns. Torn pieces of metal reformed into weapons with no identity, no soul. They didn't broadcast threats. They didn't warn or explain. They weren't trying to destroy Earth's fleet. They were trying to erase it. Inside the vengeance of dawn, alarms sounded as the fleet's perimeter shattered. One Earth destroyer, EHS Lantern Wake, vanished mid-transmission, just a scream. Then static. No wreckage. No light. Just gone Captain Mila Rin stared at the tracking screen as her ship's memory logs flickered. Names were disappearing, sir. They're not just attacking our systems. They're attacking our history. Our story files are being eaten line by line. Admiral Calder's voice was cold. Calm, deploy the story bombs. All across the fleet, sealed canisters were activated. Released into space like flares, but they didn't burn. They spoke. The first one exploded in orbit above the fleet. Not fire, not radiation, but sound. A voice soft and human telling. A memory. My name is Elijah Carr. I was 8 when the bombs fell on Europe. I survived under a school desk with my sister. I never saw her again, but I still remember how she laughed. Then another. We lost our son to war. He wanted to be a poet. We kept his last poem in a box of bullets. And another. My planet was eaten by plague. I was the only one to leave. I carried their names in my lungs, and I'll never let them go. Story bombs filled the void with meaning and the ghost. Fleet stopped, mid-motion, mid-dash attack, as if the sound, those memories confused it. One ghost ship twitched, turned sideways. Its hull began to shake. Pieces of armor melted, revealing something underneath. Words, etched in human language. Names, ship logs, forgotten. Truths the ghosts weren't just built from scrap, they were built from stolen history. Calder leaned forward, eyes locked on the transmission. We can't kill what's already dead, he said, but we can remind them what they were. On board the Pilgrim's Echo, Chief Memory Officer Leiko Quinn activated the primary core. It hummed not like a machine, but like a heartbeat. She uploaded Earth's master sequence, songs from ruined nations, testimonies from survivors, journal, entries from orphans, laughs, cries, wedding vows, funerals, all the beautiful, terrible noise of human life. She spoke into the core. You want silence? Then hear this. And unleashed it. A shockwave of pure memory tore through the void. The ghosts staggered. Literally ships jerked in space. Crashing into each other like stunned animals, one began screaming. Not with weapons, with a choir of its own voices playing backstories it had consumed long ago. A chorus of suffering, a confession, then it imploded to full to contain it. Not destroyed, release Calder. Saw it all. It's working, he whispered. We're waking them up. But then the architect arrived. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't. A being it was absence made real. A sphere the size of a moon made from nothing. Blacker than space. Deeper than thought. It didn't radiate. It consumed. And as it entered the field, the stars behind it disappeared. Like they'd never existed. Architect Prime, whispered Leiko Quinn from the echo. The first one. The one that made the others. Spoke only once. A single transmission. You broke the silence. You carry the noise. You must be cleansed. And the death began again. Story bombs stopped working. Ships melted on contact. Crews screamed without sound. Their minds wiped before their bodies fell. Earth's fleet faltered. Even the mighty vengeance of dawn took damage its memory drives sliced open. Thousands of names cut from history. It seemed over until a single voice cut through the madness. Not from a core, not from a bomb, but from a person, Lieutenant. Darren Shaw, barely recovered from the Cerberus mission, activated a manual channel. Wide broadcast. No encryption. He stepped in front of a live mic and began to speak. Just speak. My name is Darren Shaw. I watched my brother die in a fire on Mars when I was 11. I joined the fleet to prove I wasn't weak. I'm still scared every day, but I keep going. I remember, and I won't stop. His voice echoed into the dark dot, and the architect hesitated, not because of the memory, but because of the truth in it. Shaw wasn't trying to fight. He was just trying to exist, to be heard. And that, to the architect, was unbearable, because that was what it had tried to erase long ago, a species that didn't need to be perfect. Just Real Calder saw the shift. Everyone, he ordered open personal channels. No lies, no signals, no weapons, just talk. No, they did. All over the fleet, voices rising, not coordinated, not planned, just raw.real, human. Hundreds of them, thousands. I miss my mother. I failed my exam and still became a captain. I made mistakes, and I still survived. I lost her. Still love her. We are not clean. We are not still. We are not quiet. We are not sorry. The architect shook. Its perfect shape cracked, and a single, final voice emerged from its core. Grange, the woman from the Cerberus, now free. I remember. The sphere exploded, not in fire, but in sound. All the memories it had eaten released. All. The ghosts freed. The void screamed, and then for the first time in eons, it wept. After the battle, space was quiet again, but not the same kind of quiet. Not dead, alive, like the galaxy was listening, and Earth, battered and bleeding, still stood. Not because of fire, not because of weapons, because they remembered, and they refused to be erased. Long after the echoes of the Architect Prime faded, the Death Fleet drifted in stunned silence through the ruins of a war that didn't follow rules. A war not of missiles or machines, but of memory. They had survived something that hadn't. Benfortit had been endured. Yet the feeling on board every Earth ship wasn't victory. It was a strange, haunting question. Why did this happen at all? On board the Pilgrim's Echo, Chief Memory Officer Lako Quinn dug through the fragments of the Architect's remains data shards, pulse-stained alloys, memory fractures embedded in psychic blackstone. She didn't sleep, didn't eat. Something inside her said the truth was close. Too close. And then she found it. Not a weapon, not a command system. A journal not in words, but in emotional records layered like sediment inside the Architect's core calder. Rin and Quinn gathered in the command deck of the Vengeance of Dawn, surrounded by blue light from the decoded feed. What they saw didn't make sense. The Architects hadn't always been monsters. They had been builders, millions of years ago. Before most galaxies even formed, they had been a vast species of starcrafters, capable of bending energy, creating stable planets, building suns from dust. They were known then only as the Alari, and they loved life. Too much, they seeded the stars with it watching, guiding, protecting. Until they made a mistake, they uplifted a world in a wild. It's an unstable part of the galaxy, a death world, high gravity. Violent storms, wild evolution, short lifespans, fast thinkers. It was Earth and Earth. Didn't grow as they expected. The Alari thought guiding Earth would create. Philosophers had created fighters. They thought empathy would win, but survival. More often, humanity spread fast. It broke patterns. It refused predictions. And worst of all, it asked why. Why were we made? Why were we being watched? Why couldn't we be free? The Alari panicked. They saw Earth as a dangerous variable. Not evil, not broken, just too loud, too real, so they tried to silence it. Subtle at first. Remove key resources. Kill off leading thinkers. Collapse civilizations. But nothing worked. Earth rose again. And again. And again, the Alari saw that the very thing they hated, memory, is what gave humans strength. They tried to delete Earth from the timeline, but the universe remembered. And in the end, the Alari were the ones who broke. They turned on their own purpose. transformed themselves into the architects of silence, not to destroy life, but to unwrite it. They believed if they couldn't control the story, no one should have it. Captain Rin stood in shock. They made us, then tried to erase us? Admiral Calder nodded. Because we refused to be perfect, Leco added quietly. No, because we refused to be quiet. Calder turned back to the hologram. They created the Architect Prime from themselves, a god of forgetting. And they launched it not just toward Earth, but toward every race that started to question, to feel, to disobey their path. Zethari, the Varn, the Thalon, all targeted. Some erased, some ran. Only Earth fought back. Orion whispered. What does that mean for us now? Calder said nothing for a long moment. Then he replied, It means Earth isn't a mistake. We're the answer they feared across the galaxy. Fragments of the Architect network still moved. Not coordinated, not violent, just broken. Some ghost ships now played music through space. Others drifted toward suns, seeking light. A few were taken into orbit by other species, not as trophies, but as memorials. Earth broadcast a message. To all known civilizations, we were made to be silent, but we found our voice. And if you have lost yours, we'll help you find it again. Surprisingly, the Van responded first. Not with words, with a memory. A public archive of every culture they had lost. The Thalon sent their songs. The Zethari reopened ancient, Doom-dash worlds. The galaxy began, slowly to remember, not perfectly, but together. And Earth. Earth mourned, thousands. Dead. Whole histories lost. But they didn't hide it. They recorded it, made it part of the great story core. Ships began printing names of the fallen, directly onto their hulls. Not in glory. In honesty, some pilots even had their own stories welded onto their armor. Not as decoration, but as a shield. Because now they knew. Memory is armor, and forgetting? Forgetting is the enemy. Admiral Calder looked out from the observation deck. 1,000,000 stars shone in the distance, but one was dark. A place where silence still ruled. The Architect isn't dead, he said. Not all of it. Not yet. Go. Quinn stepped beside him. We beat it once. With truth. With pain. With who we are. Calder nodded. And next time, he said, we won't wait to be called. Captain Rin joined them. The Death Fleet was meant to destroy, she said. But maybe now it's something else. What? Calder asked. A reminder, she said, that we were here, and we didn't go quietly. They stood there. A moment longer, and then the orders went out. Prepare the fleet. We're not running. We're not hiding. We remember. In the weeks after the collapse of the Architect Prime, Earth's Death Fleet became something different. No longer feared as monsters, no longer whispered about as Deathworlders who brought fire, they became legends. Their ships were called by new names across the galaxy: the Memory Keepers, the Echo Guard, the Voices in the Dark. But while the galaxy celebrated, Admiral Reese Calder did not. He stood alone in his quarters aboard the Vengeance of Dawn, staring at a blank screen. It wasn't off. It had been wiped. A secure backup of Earth's core knowledge bank, now completely gone. He hadn't noticed it until now. It had been silently erased, not by an attack, by something waiting inside the code. Something that had survived. On the edge of the null zone, signal pulsed, faint, broken, but unmistakably Architect. The coordinates pointed to an old mining colony in the Ordis. Rift, a forgotten sector long abandoned by every galactic race. The colony, called Marin 6, hadn't reported life in over a century, until now. The Death Fleet moved without hesitation. They knew the signs, and they knew the danger. Wasn't over my -6? Looked dead from orbit, but the longer they scanned, the stranger it became. The planet's crust had cracked. Not from weapons, from within. like something had grown too large. Something that shouldn't have been there at all. As the first recon shuttle descended, they found signs of old battles, not just scars, but time-warped wreckage, machines made from architect design, fused with local metal. The structures pulsed faintly, as if still alive, listening, waiting. And in the center of it all stood a tower. Perfect. Black, shaped like an ear. Listening for the next voice it could silence. Lieutenant Darren Shaw led the ground team. He'd changed since the Cerberus mission. He didn't flinch when they passed husks of erased colonist men and women turned to fine gray dust. Their outlines burned into the walls. They reached the base of the black tower and found a single working console, no screen, no keyboard, just a mirror. When Shaw looked in, he didn't see his face. He saw another version of himself. Tired, hollow-eyed, silent, this reflection raised its hand and whispered, "You brought the noise. Now, take the silence." Shaw stepped back. "This place is a trap," he said. "It's not a signal. It's bait." Back in orbit. Calder received confirmation. The tower was broadcasting through subthought space, a method of communication that didn't use language, only emotion. It was reaching minds all across the sector, especially the most vulnerable. Whole colonies began to go quiet. Ships powered down mid-flight, even within the fleet. Some crew members fell into comas, not from wounds but from surrender. They were giving up, letting go of thought, letting the silence in, Captain. Rin ran a full diagnostic on fleet communications and made a terrifying discovery. The pulse wasn't just spreading, it was adapting, learning how to disguise itself as memory. It started as an attack, now it was a choice. Forget or suffer. Calder called a meeting with the fleet's top minds. "This isn't about Earth anymore," he said. "This is about the galaxy. It's dying because it's tired, because it's old, because the silence seems easier than the fight." Turned to Lake O'Quinn. "But we don't die quietly, do we?" She shook her head. "No," she said. "We die loud." The plan was madness. A full broadcast of Earth's unfiltered history. All of it. The wars, the failures, the pain, the beauty, the music, the chaos. Every mistake, every scream, every hope sent through every relay to every forgotten corner of space. Not to teach, not to conquer, to remind, to prove that life, no matter how messy, is worth remembering. They called it Operation Echo Fire. The memory cores were unlocked. Ships powered up to full. A countdown began. When they launched the stream, the tower on Marin 6 reacted violently. It began screaming, not in sound, not in language, in raw fear. The silence was afraid because it realized something too late. The Death Worlders weren't trying to survive. They were trying to save everything else across the galaxy. The broadcast spread, and something incredible happened. The Thalan reactivated their lost libraries. The Varn reawakened a slumbering generation of mind-locked elders. Even rogue machines and forgotten drone fleets paused. Shimmerdan began to speak. They remembered their first. Creators remembered who they were, and they chose to exist. Back on Marin 6, a black tower cracked, and from its core came a shape not human, not machine, something in between. A last shard of the architect mind. It reached for Shaw. "You are noise," it said. "You will never rest." Shaw smiled. "Exactly." And with one push of a story bomb, his own memory of his brother of fire, of love, of survival, he detonated the core. No explosion, just light and song. In the aftermath, the galaxy stood at a crossroads. The silence was not gone, but it had been challenged. And more importantly, understood. Earth didn't become rulers. They became guardians of memory, of meaning, of the right to be loud. The Death Fleet stayed active, but no longer to destroy, to remind. Everywhere they flew, they carried stories, and they told the stars. We refuse to die, not because we are strong, but because we remember. The silence had retreated, but it had not surrendered. Across the stars, Memory bloomed like wildfire songs, stories, languages, long buried, now reawakened. Earth's broadcast had reached worlds that hadn't spoken in millennia. It gave the galaxy a choice again. But far beyond known space, in a place no light reached, something stirred. The architects, shattered though they were, had left behind one final plan, a contingency, not a weapon, a champion. One who knew humanity, one who once was human. It began with a whisper inside the minds of Earth's outer colonies. Children, speaking in perfect sentences they never learned, old men weeping over dreams they hadn't remembered in decades. One by one, outposts fell silent, not from attack, but from acceptance. Peaceful, painless, empty by the time the fleet responded. It was too late. The colony of Ellerin prime population, 2.3 million, was gone, not destroyed, erased. And in their place was a message, burned into the orbital sky by Disrupted. Satellite beams, you gave us voice, we send you silence. On board. The Vengeance of Dawn, Admiral Reese Calder reviewed the footage with clenched fists. Behind him stood Lieutenant Shaw, Myla Rin, and Lacko Quinn. All hardened now by the weight of war and survival. But what they saw on the feed chilled them. Oh man. One man. Walking through the center of the abandoned colony. Tall.com, dressed in old Earth military black, unarmed and speaking directly to the orbital cameras, Reese Calder. It's time we spoke. I am the last voice you buried. I am the quiet you could not kill. Captain Rin leaned forward. Is that? Calder nodded. Slowly, yes. That's Elian Ward. Shaw's jaw dropped. The Elian Ward. Earth's original peace envoy. Vanished 20 years ago during the Sirius Rebellion. Presumed dead, Lacko added. But Calder shook his head. No, he didn't die. He was taken. 2 decades ago, Elian Ward had been Earth's voice. To the stars.com? Brilliant. A negotiator unlike any other. But during a peace mission to a collapsing AI empire, he had vanished. No wreckage, no signal, no ransom. And now he had returned, changed. Not angry, not vengeful. Empty. He walked into Earth's most secure relay station on Nova Talis without resistance. The guards simply let him in, smiling, nodding, forgetting themselves. He plugged in a memory key, and it began. Data erasure. Deep core logic reformatting. But worse, people began giving up their own identities. Willingly Calder called emergency council. This isn't an invasion. This is a campaign. Surgical, strategic, psychological. He's using our own strength against us, Lacko said bitterly. Memory. He's not deleting it. He's unraveling it. Making people question which stories are real, which identities matter, till they just surrender. Captain Rin cursed under her breath. We gave the galaxy a voice, and now he's rewriting the script. Calder's eyes burned. Then it's time we reminded him where that voice came from. They deployed the Pilgrim's Echo and the Vengeance of Dawn to intercept Elian Ward near the Draenei Line-Earth's most vulnerable communication corridor. But before they could reach him, contacted them directly. No encryption, no command. Channel just a voice broadcast across every Earth ship. I was one of you. I believed in peace. I believed in truth. But the truth is, noise becomes pain. Memory becomes grief. And grief becomes war. I found peace in the architects. They took away my pain. And I want to take away yours. Then calmly, let me silence you. You'll thank me. He boarded the Vigilant Star, one of Earth's refit transports. Without resistance, the crew didn't fight. They welcomed him. When the Echo arrived hours later, he found the ship floating, everyone aboard still alive, breathing, smiling, but silent. Every screen, every tablet, every word. Gone. Lacko examined the logs. There was no hacking, no damage, just willing amnesia. They chose to forget, she whispered. He convinced them they were better off not remembering who they were. Shaw gritted his teeth. And let's remind him, the Death Fleet prepared a counterstrike. Unlike any before, they didn't bring missiles. They brought memories. Volunteers from every Earth nation submitted their darkest, most honest stories, failures, regrets, loves lost. Lives ruined dawned, lived anyway. They were compressed into a new kind of story bomb, a truth core, meant to be delivered face to face, meant to force even Elian Ward to remember who he had been, and Shaw volunteered to carry it. I looked into the silence once, he said. I won't let it win again. They found Ward waiting on a derelict listening post, orbiting a dead moon. He didn't run, he greeted Shaw with a calm nod. Lieutenant, I remember you. Shaw approached slowly. You remember? Or they let you pretend? Ward smiled. They showed me how peaceful it is not to hurt. Isn't that worth it? Shaw held the truth core. It's not about peace. It's about meaning. He activated the device, and Elian Ward screamed not from pain, from grief, because the truth core, I didn't force memory. It unlocked it. All of it. His time on Earth, his ideals, his mission, his fear, his capture, and worst of all, his surrender. I wanted to fix everything, Ward wept. And when I couldn't, I chose silence. Shaw put a hand on his shoulder. We don't fix everything, we just keep going. Ward collapsed, human again, broken, but no longer hollow. Back on the Vengeance, Calder watched the feed and whispered, he was never the enemy, he was the test. Lako nodded, and we passed. Captain Rin looked to the stars. No more running, Calder agreed. Next time, we don't wait for silence to come. We take the noise to it. The stars were quiet again, not peaceful waiting. After the redemption of Elian Ward, Earth's Death Fleet knew the final architect mind still existed. Somewhere beyond the mapped stars, buried in a sector without name, without light, they called it the Hollow. A place erased not by war, but by choice. It wasn't on any chart, no gravity wells, planetary bodies. Just a wound in the galaxy void of starlight, a void of time. And that was where the last memory led. A fragment hidden inside Ward's mind, uncovered by the truth core. A memory not his, but inherited. Not a place, but a presence. The original. Architect, the first mind that rejected emotion, rejected noise, rejected life. And Earth's last mission was clear. Go there. Face it. Remind it what life truly means. They called the operation Final Recall, the Death Fleet, assembled in silence. Not because they were afraid, because they knew what this meant. This wasn't a war. It was a reckoning. The vengeance of dawn. Pilgrim's echo. And 3 support vessels entered the hollow as one. All systems remained functional. No resistance, no interference, until the stars behind them vanished, one by one, and a voice filled every ship. You carried the noise too far. You ignited the forgotten. You awoke the galaxy, and now you will forget. Then came the vision, not in the eyes, in the soul. Each crew member, every soldier, saw a version of peace so perfect, so numb, it hurt. To resist, a universe without war, without grief, without confusion, but without love, without story, without them. Shaw staggered in his quarters. Sweat dripped from his brow. He saw his brother alive again, smiling, telling him it was okay, telling him to let go. He reached out. But then he felt something in his pocket. A coin. Small. Metal. Engraved with a name. Leah Shaw. His brother's the last gift he'd given him. A memory. He clutched it. Tightened. The illusion shattered. He screamed, and around the fleet others began to wake. One by one, they had brought their memories with them, and now they became armor. At the center of the hollow, it waited the origin mind. No ship, no form, just gravity. Warping space itself. It spoke. not in threats, but in offerings. I can remove all you have lost. Rewrite your history, spare you the burden of grief. Wouldn't that be better? Admiral Calder stood at the forward deck, jaw set. No, he whispered. We carry our pain because it tells us who we are. He gave the order, launched the final core. The Pilgrim's Echo released the payload. A memory core the size of a city. Not encoded, not filtered. Raw, the full truth of Earth. The darkest chapters, slavery, genocide, war, betrayal. But also resistance, forgiveness, love, rebirth, and the architect screamed, not enraged, in recoil. It had never seen anything except its imperfection. Never imagined that a species could grow through pain, not around it. Earth's final weapon wasn't violence, it was truth. The hollow began to collapse. The origin mind fractured, not because it was attacked, because it understood, and it could not bear it. To know that life did not want perfection, it wanted. Messy, flawed, beautiful. It tried to erase itself, but Earth held it still. Laco Quinn activated the last command. Record. And the origin mind, whence a god of silence, became the final story Earth would ever keep. When the fleet emerged from the hollow, the stars greeted them like old friends. No enemy followed. No voice returned. The silence was just silence again. And the galaxy. It woke. Fully. Not in war. In song. The Varn began broadcasting poems. Across trade lanes, the Zethari opened memory temples on floating stations. Even Rogues built statues of emotion in Earth. They became what no death world had ever become before. The keepers, not rulers, not saviors, just the ones who refused to forget, the ones who taught the galaxy that being loud was not shameful. It was holy. It was human. On the 10th anniversary of the war, the Pilgrim's Echo returned to Earth's orbit and broadcast one message to every corner of space. We are the Death Worlders, born in chaos, forged in grief, sharpened by memory, and we will never go silent again. Then they added a final name. To the story core, you, because whoever you are, reader, listener, survivor, you're part of the story now, and the galaxy remembers, because Earth made sure it never forgets.